You've been blind your entire life and you didn't even know it. Not blind in the way you think. Your eyes work just fine, but sight is not the same as seeing. From the moment you were born, you were taught how to look, but never how to perceive. You were handed a lens polished by culture, education, media, and fear, and told that was reality, that was the truth. But what if the truth was never outside you? What if the truth was something you could only access by looking within? There's a reason why ancient cultures revered the third eye, why mystics, sages, and even early scientists whispered about a hidden doorway in the human mind. Not a metaphor, not a fantasy, a mechanism, biological and energetic, that when awakened, shifts everything. Not by changing the world, but by changing how you experience it. You're not here to survive the matrix. You're here to wake up from it. And this is where that awakening begins. There's a part of your brain you were never told to pay attention to. It sits right in the center, shaped like a pine cone, buried beneath layers of noise, distraction, and chemical interference. The ancients knew about it. They gave it names: the seat of the soul, the doorway to the divine, the eye that sees beyond time. Today, science calls it the pineal gland, but what they rarely admit is this: it may be the key to unlocking the most powerful perception a human being can access. This isn't about mysticism or New Age fluff. This is about something real, something rooted in physiology, in measurable patterns, and in experiences that modern life has buried under concrete layers of conditioning. The third eye isn't just a spiritual symbol carved into temples or drawn into ancient scrolls. It's a cross-cultural code that points toward the same thing: an inner faculty of vision capable of perceiving beyond what's directly in front of you. From the Ajna chakra in Indian yogic systems to the Eye of Horus in Egyptian symbolism, the message has remained the same through millennia. There's more to reality than the physical world, and we have the internal architecture to access it. The pineal gland, positioned exactly where these ancient systems place the third eye, is more than just an evolutionary leftover. It responds to light. It regulates circadian rhythms, and according to a growing number of researchers, may even produce DMT, a compound known to generate profoundly altered states of awareness. Why does this matter? Because when this gland is active, when the third eye opens, something shifts. You begin to see the world not as it's been sold to you, but as it is. Patterns emerge. Your intuition sharpens. You stop mistaking coincidence for randomness. You begin to sense a rhythm behind events, a structure beneath chaos, and more than that, you start to notice that your thoughts, your focus, your emotional state, somehow they're influencing the external world. You speak, and reality responds. You imagine, and synchronicities show up. This isn't wishful thinking, it's what happens when your perception is no longer limited to the narrow bandwidth of conditioned sight. And yet almost no one is taught this. You're handed rules, beliefs, social expectations. You're taught to memorize facts, not question the lens you're looking through. You're trained to think from the outside in, not the inside out. The third eye is like a signal receiver, but most people are stuck in static, too much noise, too much stimulation, too much belief in the illusion that reality is fixed, external, and out of their control. Some truths about the third eye are simply too sensitive to share here, so we share them inside Insights Academy. Our free newsletter, sign up via the link below, and we'll send you a free copy of the Kalian, only for a limited time. The third eye isn't about escaping the world. It's about seeing it for the first time, clearly, directly, without distortion. You begin to feel a kind of inner certainty, that doesn't rely on data or approval. You just know, and it's not because someone told you or because you read it in a book. It's because a part of you that was always there, buried under layers of programming, starts to wake up. You start remembering what it feels like to trust your gut, to listen to your inner voice without second-guessing it, and to realize that your mind is not just a receiver of reality, it's a co-creator of it. This is the beginning of a deeper awareness, and once it begins, there's no going back. Before you had the words to describe what you saw, before you had the awareness to question what you were told, the world had already begun the process of closing your third eye. It didn't happen through force or violence. It happened through quiet repetition, through smiles that hid scripts, through institutions that claimed to teach but were really designed to shape. From the moment you entered the school system, you were being conditioned to look outward for answers, to seek truth in textbooks and authority figures instead of within yourself. You were told what was real and what wasn't. You were trained to follow rules, to memorize, to conform, and little by little, that inner eye, that inner compass, was shut down, not because you failed, but because the system succeeded. The third eye doesn't close all at once. It dulls. It's covered layer by layer with distractions and distortions. It starts with overstimulation, bright lights, flashing screens, fast-moving images. As a child, your brain was absorbing everything, and much of what it received taught you not to sit still, not to be quiet, not to go inward. Then came the messaging. Cartoons where the rebels are villains, classrooms where obedience is rewarded, rules that feel more like cages than guidance. Every time you were punished for questioning, every time your curiosity was met with a sigh or a scolding, the signal to your inner eye grew weaker. And then there's the physical side, the pineal gland. The biological root of your third eye is highly sensitive, not just to light, but to chemicals, to toxins, to the environment you live in. It's one of the only parts of your brain not protected by the blood-brain barrier, which makes it vulnerable. Fluoride, for example, a substance added to drinking water in many parts of the world under the guise of dental health, has been shown in some studies to calcify the pineal gland over time. This isn't a conspiracy, it's biochemistry. The very gland associated with your perception of higher states is being numbed at the source, and no one is talking about it in the mainstream. You grow up thinking this is normal. You grow up believing that the constant mental fog, the inability to connect with your intuition, the dull sense that something is off but you can't explain what, it's just adulthood. Or worse, you're told it's depression, anxiety, or a chemical imbalance. And the solution is more chemicals, more prescriptions, more things to suppress what might actually be a signal calling you to wake up. It's not just fluoride, it's what you eat, what you watch, what you listen to, the environments you spend time in. It's social media algorithms feeding you empty stimuli, pulling you further from your internal compass. It's processed food, it's fast entertainment, it's working under fluorescent lights for hours every day, never seeing real sunlight, never giving your body or mind the stillness it needs to tune back in. And the worst part? This is normalized. No one questions it because everyone else is doing it too. The world is structured to keep your third eye closed and your attention diverted. You're not meant to slow down, to question, to feel. You're meant to perform. The result is a society filled with people who are spiritually blind but don't even realize it. People who chase meaning in external things, money, status, appearance, while ignoring the source of real clarity that's been dormant inside them all along. People who look at life and feel like something's missing, but don't know that what's missing is their own unfiltered perception. This isn't your fault. You were born into a system that rewards blindness and punishes vision. But blindness isn't permanent. The third eye doesn't die, it waits. And when you begin to turn inward again, when you begin to question the narrative, when you start making even small changes to how you live and how you see, something opens. The static clears, the fog lifts. And for the first time in a long time, you start to remember what it means to really see. Science has become a religion, not the real kind, the messy, curious, ever-questioning force that drove humans to understand the stars, the body, the unseen. No, what we have today is a polished, market-approved version of science, selectively funded, media-filtered, and sold back to us through corporate lenses. But hidden in the cracks of mainstream narratives are theories, experiments, and discoveries that point to something far more powerful and far more inconvenient to the systems built on control. These findings suggest that your consciousness is not a side effect of your brain. It might be the other way around. Start with the observer effect, one of the most unsettling phenomena in quantum mechanics, in the infamous double-slit experiment. Particles of light behave differently depending on whether or not they are being observed. Read that again. Observation changes the outcome. Not interaction, not interference, just observation. That shouldn't be possible, at least not according to the materialist model of the universe that says objects behave independently of our awareness, but it is. And it's been tested, peer-reviewed, and repeated. Think about what this means. If observation can affect particles, if reality shifts based on whether you're looking at it, then consciousness is not just a passive witness to the universe. It's a participant, a force, a shaper. This isn't some mystical leap. This is hard science suggesting that the mind isn't just trapped in the skull floating in a meaningless world. It suggests the opposite. The world you live in is responding to your awareness. What you focus on, you amplify. What you ignore, decays. The observer, it turns out, is not separate from the observed. Now bring in thinkers like Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff, who've developed the orchestrated objective reduction, OR theory. It proposes that consciousness arises not from neurons firing like computer code, but from quantum processes happening in microtubules inside the cells of your brain. In other words, your consciousness is entangled with the fabric of the universe itself, not metaphorically, literally. We're talking about quantum coherence, non-local processing, and vibrational frequencies that may be rooted in dimensions we don't yet fully understand. This aligns eerily with ancient wisdom. Yogic systems spoke of energy centers in the body, chakras that regulate perception, emotion, and connection to higher states. The Ajna chakra, the third eye, is associated with insight, intuition, and inner vision. Thousands of years ago, without microscopes or particle colliders, these systems taught that what you see with your physical eyes is only a fragment of reality, and that awakening perception means going beyond surface appearances. The pineal gland, long considered a vestigial mystery by mainstream biology, may very well be the body's built-in access point to these subtler layers of consciousness. It contains photoreceptors, cells that respond to light, suggesting it may process more than physical light. It may process subtle fields of information. It may be your antenna. The problem is, it's been discredited, laughed at, and ignored. Because if the pineal gland really is your gateway to higher perception, then the entire model of reality we've been handed falls apart. And that's inconvenient, not just for science, but for every institution built on the idea that reality is fixed, objective, and out of your hands. Then there's Rupert Sheldrake, who introduced the concept of morphic fields, non-physical fields of information that shape behavior, memory, and biological development. According to his theory, living systems inherit not just genetics, but patterns of form and behavior from a kind of invisible blueprint. That might sound esoteric until you realize it echoes what mystics have called the Akashic records, or what ancient traditions described as the field of all knowledge. These aren't fringe ideas anymore. They're ideas that challenge the monopoly of mechanistic science and point to a universe that is alive, conscious, and responsive to your attention. You were taught that science and spirituality are opposites, that you can believe in one but not the other. That's the trap. The truth is, real science and real spirituality are converging. And right at the center of that convergence is consciousness, your consciousness. The third eye isn't just a poetic metaphor, it's the internal mechanism that lets you access this deeper, weirder, more beautiful reality. And science, whether it wants to admit it or not, is starting to catch up. What if the world you see isn't the world that exists, but the one your mind has been trained to perceive? Most people walk through life assuming that reality is fixed, stable, objective, that what they see is what everyone else sees, that what they experience is just how the world is. But that's not how perception works, and it's definitely not how reality works. Not if you understand what's really happening behind the curtain of ordinary awareness. Because the truth is this: the world isn't what it is, it's what you are. You don't just observe reality, you edit it. We're not talking about delusion or fantasy. We're talking about a neurological and quantum level fact. Every second, your brain filters out the vast majority of information coming at you, the colors, the sounds, the electromagnetic signals, the invisible energy fields, even the emotional data in the room. All of it is reduced to a trickle. Why? Because your brain isn't built to show you the world as it is. It's built to show you the version of reality that fits your beliefs, your expectations, and your conditioning. And guess what's right at the center of that filtration system? The third eye. When your third eye is closed or inactive, you see only the surface. You react to life. You miss the patterns. You miss the hidden variables. You live on autopilot, always one step behind, wondering why things don't quite click. But when the third eye begins to open, your perception starts to change, subtly at first. You notice synchronicities, coincidences that feel too sharp to be random. You begin to sense a flow behind events, something unseen guiding your path. The more you observe, the more the world responds. The more you focus, the clearer things become. The double-slit experiment already showed us that particles behave differently when observed. But what's even more interesting is what this implies about attention. Attention isn't passive. It's not just looking at something, it's interacting with it, influencing it, choosing it. This is the true meaning of the phrase "energy flows where attention goes," not as a cute mantra, but as a physical law. When you focus on something with emotional intensity and belief, you're not just daydreaming, you're participating in shaping which version of reality comes into being. This is why two people can live through the same moment and have completely different experiences. One sees opportunity, the other sees threat. One notices meaning, the other sees chaos. Same external reality, entirely different internal reception. It's not the world that's different, it's the lens they're using. And that lens is shaped by the state of their third eye. So here's the question: what lens are you using? What filters have you inherited? And which ones are you ready to challenge? The reality you experience is shaped by what you choose to see. But the good news is, once you realize this, the game changes. You can start playing instead of just reacting. You can start observing with awareness. You can start shaping your reality from the inside out. The third eye doesn't just open, it awakens, and when it does, everything changes. Within simple visualization practices, you can kickstart this process. One of the most potent is the blue flame meditation. Sit in stillness, close your eyes, and focus your attention on the space between your eyebrows. Visualize a small, vivid blue flame flickering in that spot. Let it grow, let it pulse, let it burn away the static and distraction that clouds your mind. The more often you do this, the stronger your energetic signal becomes. You're not summoning something new, you're remembering something ancient, a part of you that's always been tuned in, just buried under debris. Another practice is the violet light technique. Imagine a beam of violet light descending from above, entering through the top of your head and concentrating in the area of the third eye. Visualize this light dissolving blockages, physical, mental, emotional. It's not just imagination. When done with deep focus, these visualizations can trigger physiological changes. Brainwave frequencies shift, your nervous system calms, and that subtle inner perception begins to activate. Sound is also a powerful tool. Certain frequencies like 432 Hz or 936 Hz resonate with the third eye and the pineal gland. Listening to these tones during meditation can enhance sensitivity and deepen altered states. Combine this with breath work, and the results become even more potent. Breath, after all, is the bridge between body and spirit. Slowing your breath, holding it, feeling it, this connects you to your internal rhythm, the one modern life tries to override with speed, urgency, and noise. You can also support this process physically. The pineal gland is a sensitive structure, easily disrupted by environmental toxins. Reducing fluoride exposure, eating whole foods, drinking clean water, and spending time in natural sunlight can all help. But don't mistake this for biohacking. This isn't about optimization, it's about purification and clarity, removing what doesn't belong so what's always been there can finally shine through. One of the most underrated practices is journaling, not about your day, but about your observations. Keep a record of subtle patterns, a feeling you had that turned out to be right, a dream that seemed to carry a message, a moment of déjà vu. The more you write these things down, the more you begin to notice them. And that's the point. To train your mind to pay attention to what it used to dismiss. The third eye doesn't explode open in a flash of cosmic fireworks. It opens gradually like a sunrise. Slowly, your perception expands. Colors feel more vivid. Conversations feel layered. You sense the intention behind people's words. You notice shifts in energy, emotion, and timing. And what used to feel random starts to feel connected. This is the unfolding. It doesn't make you special, it makes you present. But be warned, awakening your third eye isn't just a spiritual high, it's a process that often brings hidden truths to the surface, emotional patterns, repressed memories, internal contradictions. The third eye doesn't just show you the world more clearly, it shows you yourself. And not everyone is ready for that. That's why grounding is essential. Walk barefoot on the earth, eat real food, stay rooted in your body. Because your vision doesn't mean anything if you lose your center. In the end, awakening the third eye is about integration, merging the unseen with the seen, living with awareness, not just occasionally, but as a baseline. And when you do, the world doesn't just change, you do. And everything you see starts reflecting that change back at you. When your third eye begins to open, the shift isn't loud. It doesn't come with angels singing or colors exploding across the sky. It's not cinematic. It's subtle, quiet, but undeniably real, like waking up in a room you didn't know you'd fallen asleep in. And once it happens, the world stops feeling the same. It doesn't just look different, it moves differently. Time feels like it bends. People reveal themselves without saying a word. And for the first time you feel like you're no longer swimming through life blindfolded. The change is internal before it's ever external. At first, it's an unfamiliar clarity. You start noticing the gaps in your own reactions, the space between the moment something happens and how you respond. You feel less triggered, less rushed, less hypnotized by the constant noise of the world. It's as if someone turned down the static in your head and you're hearing yourself for the first time. That's not an accident, that's presence. And presence is the language of the third eye. Your intuition sharpens, not in some mystical, floating through the forest way, but in real, grounded, unmistakable ways. You just know things, you feel them. You can walk into a room and sense who's tense, who's lying, who's genuine. You can hear someone speak and feel what they're not saying. Your gut starts leading more than your logic. And surprisingly, you start making better decisions. It's not magic, it's that your inner perception is no longer muffled. You've upgraded your internal signal, and now reality comes through in high definition. Synchronicities multiply. You think of someone and they call you. Ask a question internally and stumble across the answer in a book, a podcast, a passing conversation. Events begin to line up, not perfectly, but precisely, as if life is no longer random but intelligently responsive. This isn't coincidence, it's alignment. Your inner frequency is starting to resonate with the patterns around you, and those patterns, once invisible, now feel obvious. Like the universe was always speaking, and now you finally understand the language. Dreams become clearer, sometimes stranger. They carry weight, texture, meaning. You wake up remembering fragments that feel like messages, codes, guidance. Some people experience a surge in creativity, writing, drawing, ideas flowing faster than they can keep up with. Others notice their relationships changing, not because the people around them have changed, but because they have. And when you begin to see clearly, you stop pretending, you stop tolerating what no longer fits. That clarity has a cost, but it also brings liberation. And then there's the light, not metaphorical, literal. Some people report flashes of light in meditation. Others see colors behind their closed eyes, deep purples, indigos, and geometric patterns that seem to move with a life of their own. These experiences vary, but the message is consistent. You're perceiving beyond the five senses. You're beginning to access the layers of reality that most people have no idea even exist. But here's the truth no one tells you. Awakening your third eye doesn't make your problems disappear. It doesn't turn your life into a spiritual fantasy. If anything, it exposes everything you've ignored. You begin to see your habits, your patterns, your wounds, everything you buried because you couldn't face them. The third eye doesn't just illuminate the world, it shines a light on you. And that's where the real work begins. Some people resist this. They want the power without the purification. But that's not how it works. You can't expand your perception without also expanding your responsibility. You start to feel accountable, not just for what you do, but for how you think, how you speak, how you show up. Because now you understand that your energy isn't contained, it spills into everything you touch. Every thought is a ripple, every intention is a seed, and you're constantly shaping reality, whether you mean to or not. There's a strange kind of peace that comes with this awakening, not because everything is perfect, but because you're no longer lost in the noise. You're tuned in, you're awake, and while most of the world is still sleeping, walking, still chasing, still numbing themselves with distractions, you're learning how to live with your eyes wide open. You're learning how to see not just what's in front of you, but what lies beneath it. Not just what people say, but who they are. Not just what happens, but why it matters. This is what happens when your third eye opens. You don't become someone else. You become more of who you were always meant to be. Once your third eye opens, you don't just see more, you see through. Through the noise, through the masks, through the carefully packaged illusion that the modern world sells as reality. And it's jarring at first because when you begin to perceive with clarity, the world you once accepted starts to unravel. The stories you were raised on, the ones that taught you to worship comfort, obey authority, fear difference, and chase things outside yourself, start to look like what they really are, tools of control dressed as culture. You begin to notice how almost everything around you is engineered to hijack your attention. Social media algorithms that feed you dopamine hits in exchange for hours of your time. News cycles that aren't designed to inform, but to agitate. Entertainment that distracts instead of expands. Advertisements that whisper you're not enough but offer you something to buy that might fix it. It's no longer invisible. You see it, you feel it, and more importantly, you don't fall for it anymore. You look at politics and it no longer feels like choice. It feels like theater. You notice how division is manufactured, how outrage is monetized, how fear is used to herd people into mental cages. You look at consumerism and see the emotional programming behind it. How people are taught to express identity through brands, to soothe emptiness with spending, to measure success through accumulation. These aren't neutral behaviors, they are rituals, cultural conditioning passed off as free will. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You begin to understand why ancient traditions warned against distraction, why mystics withdrew from noise, not to escape the world, but to see it clearly. Because when your mind is constantly reacting, constantly consuming, constantly overstimulated, there's no space for truth to land. But when you reclaim your attention, when you choose to observe rather than absorb, you break the spell. You wake up inside the dream. And what looked like chaos starts to form patterns. Even the language of the world begins to sound different. You hear the scripts people repeat without knowing their scripts. That's just how life is. You have to be realistic. Everyone's struggling. You start to see how people defend their limitations, not because they're weak, but because they were trained to. You see how institutions promote conformity under the banner of professionalism, how obedience is rewarded while questioning is labeled as rebellion or threat. It becomes painfully obvious how many people are moving through life in survival mode, numb, exhausted, addicted to distraction, disconnected from themselves. And you feel the weight of it, not just as sadness, but as clarity. You see the cost of sleepwalking, the spiritual starvation hidden behind material comfort, the way people trade authenticity for acceptance. And in seeing that, you also feel something else rising: urgency. A quiet refusal to play along anymore, because once your third eye opens, complicity becomes a choice. You can't unknow what you know. You can't unfeel what your intuition is screaming. And so you begin to step out of the illusion, not by abandoning the world, but by participating in it from a different level, a cleaner frequency, a place of alignment, not reaction. You don't buy into every trend, you don't follow every headline, and you don't engage in every argument, not because you're better, but because you're clearer. You've stopped needing to be right. You've started needing to be true. And truth doesn't scream, it resonates. You feel it in your body. You see it in the spaces between words. You live it, quietly, consistently, whether anyone notices or not. This is what the modern world doesn't prepare you for. That clarity comes at a cost. You lose comfort. You lose the crowd, but in return, you gain something far more valuable: sovereignty. You stop being a pawn, you stop being shaped, and you start becoming the one shaping. You move differently, you speak differently, you observe without being consumed, you see through without being bitter. The illusion only works if you participate in it blindly, but when your perception sharpens, when your third eye opens, the illusion doesn't collapse. It simply becomes optional, and that's where your freedom begins. Clarity is a gift, but it's not a passive one. It comes with weight, with consequence, with responsibility. Because once you begin to truly see, once your third eye is open and the illusions begin to fall apart, you're faced with a choice. You can't pretend anymore. You can't unknow. And that means every step forward has to be taken with intention. That's the real reason why most people stay asleep. Not because they're incapable of awakening, but because they sense, on some level, that waking up changes everything. And not just how you see the world, but how you show up inside it. Awareness doesn't just shine outward, it shines inward. And with it comes the uncomfortable realization that your life, Your habits, your beliefs, your reactions have been shaped more by programming than by truth. You start to notice where you've betrayed your own intuition just to be accepted, where you've stayed quiet when your soul was begging you to speak, where you've chased things that never really mattered, hoping they'd fill a hole you didn't understand. The third eye doesn't just show you hidden patterns out there. It confronts you with the patterns inside yourself. This is the work, not becoming enlightened in some abstract way, but becoming radically honest with yourself. Where do your thoughts come from? Are your desires truly yours? What stories are still running your life that were never written by you in the first place? When the fog clears, you realize that most of what you believed about yourself was inherited. And now, with open eyes, it's yours to either keep or finally let go. But here's where most people stop. They reach the awareness, feel the weight of it, and freeze. Because clarity without courage can become a prison. That's why real awakening must turn into action. This isn't just about knowing the truth. It's about living like you do, speaking differently, choosing differently, being willing to stand in the discomfort that comes with walking your own path, and understanding that while clarity may isolate you at first, it also aligns you with your purpose, with your power, with people who can actually meet you where you are. Your third eye doesn't turn you into a guru. It makes you accountable. It asks you to become